Let's get you started. There's a lot of software we need to set up. Running Spark on Windows involves a lot of moving pieces. So make sure you follow along carefully in this video and follow all the steps exactly as shown, or else you'll have some trouble. But I'll try to walk you through it as easily as I can. Now, this video is made for Windows users. That doesn't mean that you're out of luck if you're on Mac or Linux, though. If you head over to this document here, go ahead and punch that into your web browser and download that PDF document. That will contain written instructions on getting everything set up on Windows, on Mac OS, and on Linux. So again, you can watch through the video here for Windows users, and I will call out things that are specific to Windows, so I think you'll find it useful on other platforms as well. But either refer to that document, or just watch the video on Windows, and let's dive in and get it done. This course uses Python as its programming language, so the first thing you need is a Python development environment installed on your PC. And if you don't have one already, just open up a web browser and head on over to nthought.com. And we're going to install nthought Canopy. That's just my development environment of choice. If you have a different one already, that's probably okay. As long as it's a Python 3 or newer environment, you should be covered. But if you need to install a new Python environment, or you just want to minimize confusion, I'd recommend installing Canopy. So head up to the big friendly Download Canopy button here, and select your operating system. For me, that's going to be Windows 64-bit. And make sure you choose the Python 3.5 or a newer version of the package. I can't guarantee the scripts in this course will work with Python 2.7. They're built for Python 3. So select Python 3.5 for your OS and download the installer. I don't really feel like giving you my personal information, no thanks. And 400 megabytes later, that will come down and we can kick off the installer. Nothing special about it, it's just your standard Windows installer or whatever platform you're on. We're just going to accept the defaults and go through it and allow it to become our default Python environment. And when we launch it for the first time, it will spend a couple of minutes setting itself up and setting up all the Python packages that we need. So that's downloaded now. I can kick that off. And again, nothing special. You might want to read the license agreement before you accept it. That's up to you. And we'll go ahead and start that installation. So through the magic of video editing, we'll come back when this is done. Alright, so the Canopy installer has finished, and we should have a nice little nthought Canopy icon sitting on our desktop here. Now if you're on Windows, I want you to right-click on that icon and go to Properties. And then go to Compatibility, this is on Windows 10, and make sure Run this program as an administrator is checked. That'll make sure that we have all the permissions we need to run our script successfully. Alright, next thing we need is a Java development kit, because Spark runs on top of Scala, and Scala runs on top of the Java runtime environment. So, back to the browser. Let's open up a new tab here and just search for JDK, that stands for Java Development Kit, and that should bring you to the Oracle site where you can download Java from. So just go to JDK Download here, and click on that button. Click on the Accept License Agreement, and then you can select the download for your operating system. For me, that's going to be Windows 64-bit. And wait for 198 megabytes of goodness to download. Once that's finished, we're going to kick it off. And we can't just accept the default settings in the installer on Windows here. So this is a Windows-specific quirk. But as of this recording, the current version of Spark is 2.1.1. And it turns out there's an issue with Spark 2.1.1 with Java on Windows. The issue is that if you've installed Java to a path that has a space in it, it doesn't work. So we need to make sure that Java is installed to a path that does not have a space in it. This means you can't skip this step, even if you have Java installed already. So let me show you how to do that. We're going to kick off this installer, hit Next, and you see that it wants to install to this path by default. C program space files, Java, JDK, whatever the version is. That space in program files is going to cause trouble. So I'm going to hit the Change button, and instead I'm going to install it to C:\JDK. Nice simple path, easy to remember, and no spaces in it. Okay, kick that off, and let it do its thing. Now it's also going to want to install the Java runtime environment. So just to be safe, I'm also going to install that to a path with no spaces. I will change that destination folder as well. And we will make a new folder called C:JRE to stick that into. And off we go. Alright, successfully installed. Woohoo! Now remember that path that we installed the JDK into. It was C:\JDK, remember. We still have a few more steps to go here. So far we've installed Python, we've installed Java. Next we need to install Spark itself. So back to a new browser tab here. Just head to spark.apache.org. and click on the big friendly Download Spark button. Okay. Now this course has been tested with Spark 2.1.1, so given the choice, anything beyond 2.0 should work just fine, but that's where we are today. Make sure you get a pre-built version, okay? And we're going to just do a direct download, so all these defaults are perfectly fine. Go ahead and download that package. Now what it's downloading is a TGZ file. That stands for tar and gzipped. So again, Spark, Windows is kind of an afterthought with Spark, quite honestly. And on Windows, you're not going to have a built-in utility for actually decompressing TGZ files, so you might need to install one if you don't have one already. The one I use is called WinRAR, and you can pick that up from a website called rarlabs.com, just like that. And just go to the Downloads page if you need it, and download the installer for WinRAR, 32-bit or 64-bit, depending on your operating system, and that will allow you to actually decompress TGZ files on Windows if you need it. So hit pause and go install that if needed. If not, let's check back on our Apache Spark download here. It looks like it came down, so I'm going to go ahead and show that in my Downloads folder. And let's go ahead and right-click on that and extract it to a folder of my choosing. Again, WinRAR is doing this for me at this point. Okay, so I should now have a folder associated with that package. Sure enough, there it is. Let's open that up. All right, and there is Spark itself. So I need to install that someplace where I'm going to remember it. You don't want to leave it in your Downloads folder, obviously. So let's go ahead and open up a new File Explorer window here. And I'm going to go to my C drive. And I'm going to create a new folder. And let's just call it Spark. So my Spark installation is going to live under C:\Spark. Again, nice and easy to remember. Open that up. I'm going to go in Control-A to select everything in the Spark distribution, Control-C to copy it back to where I want to put it into C Spark, and Control-V to paste it in. All right. Now, one little thing we need to do here, open up the conf folder where we installed Spark 2 and rename log4j.properties.template such that you just take the template off. So it should just be log4j.properties instead. Yes, I'm sure I want to change it. And now I can open that up. If you might need to right-click there and say Open With and select WordPad. And what I want to do is change this line here where it says root category info. I want to change that to error. And that will just remove the clutter of all the log spam that gets printed out when I run stuff. So change that from info to error, save it, and close out of your editor. Okay, so now, where are we? This is kind of exhausting. We've installed Python, we've installed Java, we've installed Spark. Now, the next thing we need to do is install something that will trick your PC into thinking that Hadoop exists. And again, this step is only necessary on Windows. So you can skip this step if you're on Mac or Linux. But for you Windows people, I want you to go to this link here. You should find this in the resources associated with this lecture on platforms that have such a thing. But if you want, you can just type this link in yourself by hand, okay? And if you download that, that will give you a copy of a little snippet of an executable that can be used to trick Spark into thinking that you actually have Hadoop. Now, since we're going to be running our scripts just locally on our desktop, it's not a big deal. We don't have to have Hadoop installed for real. This just, again, gets around yet another quirk of running Spark on Windows. So now that we have that, let's show that. Control-C to copy it out of my Downloads folder. And let's go to our C drive and create a place for it to live. So I'm going to create a new folder again, and we're going to call it WinUtils. And I'm going to open up that WinUtils folder I made and create another folder within it called bin. And within that bin folder, I'm going to paste that file that I just downloaded. Okay. This next step is only required on some systems, but just to be safe, open up a command prompt in Windows. So you can do that by going to your Start menu and going down to Windows, Windows System, Command Prompt. And from here, I want you to type in cdc:\winutils/bin, which is where we stuck our winutils.exe file. So if you do a dir, you should see that there. And now type in the following: winutils.exe chmod space 777 space \tmp \hive. And that just makes sure that all the file permissions you need to actually run Spark successfully are in place without any errors. So you can close that command prompt out now that you're done with that step. Wow, we're almost done, believe it or not. Now the last thing we need to do is set up some environment variables so all the software knows where to find each other. So to do that, let's close out of this browser, get out of all this stuff. I'm going to right-click on my Windows icon, and again, on different operating systems, you'll set environment variables in different ways, but on Windows, you do it through your control panel, and by clicking on System and Security, System, and then Advanced System Settings. And from here, you click on Environment Variables. So we need to set up a few here. Let's start. So I'm going to hit the New button for my user environment variables, and I'll start by defining one for Spark_home. And that's going to be the directory I installed Spark into, which is C:\Spark. Okay. Next, create another one. This one's going to be called Java_home. And that's where I installed the JDK. And that's going to be C:\JDK. And finally, I need to set up Hadoop home. That will be where I put the winutils.exe file, and that will just be C:\winutils, just like that. And I need to finally update my path. So I'm going to click on the path environment variable, hit edit, and I'm going to add a new path. It's going to be $Spark_home $bin. And I'm going to add another one, $Java_home $bin. All right. Whew, I think that's it. Exit out of everything there, and let's see if it works. So let's go ahead and spark up Enthought Canopy. But once you get to this screen here, just go up to the Tools menu and go to Canopy Command Prompt. And this will give you a little command prompt you can use that has all the right permissions and environment variables you need to actually run Python. So let's start by cding to C:\Spark. That's where we installed Spark. Let's do a dir, see what's in there. Now, depending on the distribution that you downloaded, there might be a readme.md file or a changes.txt file. So pick one or the other, whatever you see there. That's what we're going to use. What we're going to do is set up a little simple Spark program here that just counts the number of lines in that file. So let's type in PySpark to kick off the Python version of the Spark interpreter. And if everything's set up properly, you should see something like this. Cool. Now, if you don't see a little Spark logo there in a command prompt, something went wrong. We did a lot of steps here, and if you made even the slightest little typo, things won't work. So go back and double check all those steps. I've also seen some weird cases where on some corporate PCs that are managed, sometimes it looks like you can change environment variables, but you're really not allowed to. So if you think that's the case, you might want to check with your system administrator to find out how to go about doing that. Anyway, let's write some Spark code, shall we? We should get some payoff for all this work that we did. So follow along with me here. I'm going to type in rdd equals sc.txt file with a capital F, case does matter, open parenthesis, quote, readme.md. And again, if your version of Spark has a changes.txt instead, just use changes.txt instead there. And what this does is set up what we call a resilient distributed data set. It's basically like a little database where every line of it, every row is basically a line in that text file. And now I can count up how many there are by just saying rdd.count, parentheses, and that will go off and analyze it. And I'm actually running a real Spark job right now. If this was on a cluster, it would have distributed it and everything. That's all there is to it. So there's your answer, 104 lines of text in the readme.md file. And if necessary, it would have distributed that contents of that file to many different nodes and done it all in parallel and, done what Spark does at big scale. But there you have it, your very first Spark application running for real, right on your very own PC. How cool is that? So finally, we have all the pieces that we need to get started. We can dive in and actually do something more interesting. Now to get out of this, you can just type in quit, parentheses, and that will cleanly shut everything down. And just hit enter to make sure that you have your prompt back. At this point, you can safely close this window and go back to whatever you're doing before. So congratulations, you got everything set up. It was a lot of work, but I think it's worth it. You're now set up to learn Spark using Python, so let's do it.